The new TI-84 has some really neat features, especially if you've updated your software in the last 6 months. What you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to type in true fractional form, true exponential form, which is really nice in terms of not making those careless mistakes by, oh, I didn't put a parentheses here when I was supposed to, and it was a lot of times it's not that obvious on how you're supposed to do that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do, let me clear that. What we're going to do is we're going to, if you look up at the top, if you have a new 84, it doesn't matter if it's silver or if it's the older edition, if it's just the regular edition, as long as you've updated the software, then you're going to have this feature. And so if I were to use these F1, F2, F3, F4, F5, there's some really neat things underneath them. Previously, the buttons were there, but they never did anything. So if you press alpha and F1, you get these N over D, UN over D, and some other interesting things. That's numerator over denominator. This is fraction to decimal, decimal to fraction. Super nice. If you scroll over, or maybe if I hit F2 again, functions, absolute value, this is summation, this is your nth derivative, this is logarithms with a specific base. If you go over to matrices, it's got rows versus columns, and then y variables. This is y1, y2. That's not really useful at this point, but what we really want to look at is this one. I'm going to choose number 1. It automatically pulls up something that is a fraction. And so we're going to type in something pretty complicated because I want to show you another really great feature that is available in all TI calculators. We're going to type in something like, let's say 5x raised to the third power. Notice the cubic is on the top. Now be careful. If you keep typing, you're going to continue typing in the exponent. If I press to the right, it drops back down to the regular place. Minus, I'm just making this up, x raised to, I don't have to use the caret button, that's what this is called. I've got a squared button. I can go ahead and press squared, and it automatically drops back down. So if you're going to use a square, use the squared button. Minus 5x, let's say plus 2. Press down to get to the denominator, and then we'll do something not so crazy here. We'll do, say, x, let's say x squared minus 2x minus 5, something crazy, right? And that's not going to do anything. If I've stored something in x, it's going to plug something in. It's probably going to give me some value. Let's just hit enter and see what happens. And so what has happened here, and this is irrelevant in terms of the tutorial, but I've stored something in the variable, and so it has actually plugged that into x and just worked it out. And if I just type in x, let's see what we actually plugged in. So x, and hit enter. Looks like x is equal to 0.3. I have no idea how that got there. It does this automatically at certain times when you store things. But I really would like to type that in again because that's crazy. I don't want to have to take that long to type that in again. If you press up, you'll notice that you can go backwards and pull up and kind of scroll through your elements here. If I wanted to type that in again, I can press enter, and boom, there it is, without me having to type it in. And it's editable. I can actually scroll back, and I can go back into that equation, and I can edit. I can press up, I can jump up to the numerator, and I can edit any of those pieces that I want to without having to type it all in again. Okay, then I can just hit enter at any point, and of course it'll do the same thing. Now, if you don't have a newer version, this is something that's cool, and this is everybody. If I press second enter, it brings up what I've already typed in. I can press second enter one more time, and it's going to keep going backwards until I get finished. Second enter, second enter, second enter, and it's just going to kind of keep going back, 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 back until it gets to the very first thing I typed in, until its memory stops recording this. So pressing second enter, and you keep doing that, I can hit enter, and of course it'll calculate whatever it was. Once I've hit second enter a number of times, you enter one more, and it will execute whatever command you've typed in. Right? And it's like, oh, I need to go back and get that again. Remember, if you have a newer version, I can simply scroll up and say, I want that, and hit enter. To that, we can say divided by, let's take the number up here, and I'm just making, these numbers don't mean anything, but then I can hit enter, and it will actually calculate those values for me. So using the second enter button, which is technically that's entry, what was your last entry? I could also press second negative sign and get the answer from my prior calculation. If I wanted to do that number divided by this, of course it automatically does that. If I just simply hit the division button, it's thinking, okay, well, divide the number you had before by whatever. I could use times or minus or plus. All those calculations work like that. Those are some very cool shortcuts that we can do that with. Now, the question that we always ask is, how do you turn a decimal into a fraction? So let's suppose that, let me get something a lot nicer. Let's say you had the decimal 0.125, and you wanted to turn that into a fraction. Let's say that was an answer. Under your math button, the very first thing that comes up is answer to fraction. So you hit enter, so it's basically math enter, and then hit enter to make it happen, and it'll put up your fraction, 1/8. That is also, remember back up here, if you press second F1, it's also number 4, fraction to decimal, answer to decimal. It'll take you back either way. So if we do that again, it goes back and forth. So it doesn't matter, whatever you're in, it'll convert it to the decimal, or if it's in the decimal, it'll convert it to the fraction back and forth. So those are some really nice little shortcuts that you might not have known about, but really make, in terms of when you get used to them and understanding how they work, it makes your calculations on the calculator a lot quicker. If you got any other things, any other tips about how do you do this, if you see me do it in class, go ahead and ask, especially in the middle of class. A lot of times people want to know things, and I just assume that you know them. So send me an email, ask me in class, and I hope this helps.